It's 3 a.m. You're staring at the ceiling. Your phone is face down beside you because you promised yourself you wouldn't check it. Your brain is doing that thing again, replaying a conversation from 6 years ago like it just happened. You feel broken, but the real answer is far stranger. You are not malfunctioning. You are remembering something your body never forgot. For most of human history, nobody slept the way you're expected to sleep tonight. No 8-hour block. No straight line from lights out to alarm clock. Something else was happening in the dark for thousands and thousands of years, and it looked nothing like what you're failing at right now. Let's go back. Way back. Long before electric light existed, night fell hard. Not the soft orange glow of a phone screen. Real darkness. The kind you can't see your own hand in. Fires burned low. Oil was expensive. Candles were rationed. And in that darkness, ancient humans didn't collapse into one long unconscious block until morning. They woke up. On purpose, in a sense, though nobody understood why at the time. The historian Roger Kirch spent over a decade digging through diaries, court records, medical texts, and literature from pre-industrial Europe. What he found was strange. Hundreds of documents casually mentioned something called first sleep and second sleep. People would go to bed shortly after dark, sleep for a few hours, then wake up in the middle of the night. Not from a nightmare. Not from noise. They just woke up. And here's the part that should stop you cold. Nobody panicked about it. They used that waking window for ordinary things. Praying. Talking quietly with a partner in bed. Tending a fire that had burned down to embers. Visiting a neighbor down the road. Some medical texts even describe it as an ideal time for conceiving a child, because both people were calm, rested from the first sleep, and unhurried. Then, after an hour or two of quiet wakefulness, they drifted into a second sleep until dawn. 2 sleeps, not one, with a deliberate, unbothered gap of consciousness sitting right in the middle of the night. So why does that sound insane to you right now? Because somewhere along the way, the gap disappeared. And it disappeared for a reason you already know the name of. Fire pushed the darkness back a little. Then oil lamps pushed it back more. Then, in the late 1800s, electric light arrived and obliterated night almost entirely. Suddenly you could work, socialize, and stay alert for hours after the sun went down. The long, dark stretch that used to hold 2 separate sleeps got compressed into one demanding block, squeezed at both ends by artificial light. Segmented sleep didn't vanish because it was unhealthy. It vanished because the world stopped giving it room to exist. Within a couple of generations, the very phrase, first sleep, disappeared from common language. People forgot it had ever been normal. They just assumed insomnia was new. But here's the twist, and it's a big one. Segmented sleep wasn't even the strangest part of ancient nighttime. Some anthropologists argue the biggest myth isn't about how ancient humans slept. It's about how much they worried about it. The sleep researcher Jerome Siegel led a landmark study observing 3 modern hunter-gatherer and pre-industrial societies still living without electricity: the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, and the Tsimane of Bolivia. These are groups whose daily rhythms resemble, in many ways, how ancient humans actually lived, far removed from clocks, screens, and streetlights. Siegel's team tracked their sleep using wearable monitors for weeks, recording exactly when people fell asleep, when they woke, and how long they stayed in bed doing nothing at all. What they found broke almost every assumption modern people carry about natural sleep. These groups slept less than the recommended 8 hours, often closer to 6 or 6.5. They rarely napped, despite the popular image of relaxed daytime dozing. They didn't go to bed the moment the sun set. They usually stayed up for hours in the dark around the fire first, talking, telling stories, doing very little. And astonishingly, insomnia as a diagnosed complaint was almost non-existent. There wasn't even a dedicated word for it in some of these languages. Read that again. Less sleep. No naps. Hours awake in pitch darkness after sunset. And almost zero reported insomnia. How is that possible when you can barely function after one bad night? Siegel's theory points somewhere unexpected. It's not that ancient humans slept better. It's that they never treated sleep as a performance to get right. There was no clock demanding 8 hours by a specific time. There was no anxiety about the consequences of being awake at 3 a.m., because being awake at 3 a.m. carried no shame. Darkness itself was the boundary, not a number on a screen. The moment you introduce a target, you introduce the possibility of failing it. Ancient humans had no target. You, on the other hand, are handed a rule with no evolutionary precedent. Fall asleep fast. Stay asleep for 8 straight hours. Do it every single night, on command, regardless of light, temperature, stress, or season. Ancient bodies never had to obey a schedule like that. Yours does. And when it can't, you call it broken. There's another piece to this, and it comes from evolutionary anthropologist Charles Nunn, who has studied sleep architecture across primates and early humans in shared sleeping environments. Nunn's research suggests that lighter, more fragmented sleep may have been an adaptive advantage, not a flaw. A tribe sleeping in one deep, uninterrupted block all night is a tribe that's vulnerable. Predators don't wait for a bedtime. Rival groups don't either. Some anthropologists propose that segmented, easily broken sleep kept at least a few members of a group semi-alert through the night, watching the fire, listening to the dark, reacting to a snapped branch or a distant call. Your ancestors survived, in part, because their sleep was never supposed to be unbreakable. Think about what that means for a moment. The very trait you curse at 3 a.m., the fragile, interruptible nature of your sleep, may be one of the reasons your lineage made it this far at all. A species that slept too deeply, too consistently, too soundly, might not have noticed the fire dying, or the rustle at the edge of camp, or the sound of something moving that shouldn't be moving. Fragility was the feature, not the bug. There's a reason this shows up across so many traditional societies, not just one. Anthropologists studying group sleeping arrangements have noticed a recurring pattern. People rarely slept in true isolation. Bodies were close. A parent beside a child. An elder near the fire. A partner within arm's reach. That physical closeness did something modern bedrooms rarely replicate. It meant a stir from one person could register, faintly, in the awareness of another, without either person fully waking. Sleep wasn't a private event happening behind a closed door. It was a shared, semi-conscious watch, distributed across an entire group, night after night, for generations. Compare that to your bedroom right now. A closed door. Maybe a white noise machine drowning out any trace of the world beyond it. Total, engineered isolation, marketed to you as the ideal condition for rest. And yet something in your physiology never received the memo that isolation was supposed to feel safe. Alone, the ancient watch instinct has nothing to watch with, and no one to watch beside. So it turns inward instead, scanning your own thoughts for something that needs attention, and usually finding an old worry, an unfinished conversation, a tomorrow you haven't planned for yet. So when you jolt awake at 3 a.m., heart a little fast, mind suddenly sharp, you're not experiencing a disorder. You're experiencing an inheritance. A nervous system doing exactly what it was built to do for hundreds of thousands of years. Surface you into alertness partway through the dark, just in case something out there needed your attention. Except nothing out there needs your attention anymore. There's no fire to check. No predators circling the camp. Just a quiet room, a glowing clock, and a mind that doesn't know the threat is gone. That's the modern mirror. The system is ancient. The environment isn't. You live in a world engineered to erase every one of the conditions your sleep evolved around. No true darkness, because a phone charger blinks blue in the corner and a streetlight leaks through the blinds. No fire to sit around and decompress by, so the mind never gets its old off-ramp into stillness before sleep. No permission to be casually awake in the night, so the moment you open your eyes at 3 a.m., panic arrives before curiosity does. Ancient humans woke up and lit a candle, or spoke softly to the person beside them, or simply lay there watching the dark. You wake up and start calculating how many hours of sleep you have left before everything falls apart tomorrow. Notice the difference. It isn't the waking that changed. It's the meaning you're forced to attach to it. Every culture before electricity built its life around darkness rather than against it. Night was long, So people expected to be conscious inside part of it. Morning was for work, evening was for the fire, and the deep middle of the night belonged to something quieter, something almost sacred, a private hour that asked nothing of you except to exist in it. Today, that hour has been rebranded as a symptom. Sleep clinics call it sleep maintenance insomnia. Wellness apps call it waking up at the wrong time. Nobody calls it what your ancestors would have called it, Tuesday. And there's a quiet irony sitting underneath all of this. The industry built to fix your sleep is often the same industry keeping you from it. A blue-lit screen at midnight tells your brain it's still daytime. A notification at 11 p.m. asks for a decision your ancestors never had to make in the dark. An alarm app promises to track your sleep score down to the percentage, turning something your great-great-grandparents did without thinking into a nightly test you can pass or fail. You are not just fighting your own biology. You are fighting a world that profits from the very wakefulness it then diagnoses as a disorder. None of this means insomnia isn't real, or that every restless night is secretly ancestral wisdom in disguise. Chronic sleep problems deserve real attention, and if this has been affecting you for a long time, that's worth talking through with a doctor. But the next time one single 3 a.m. waking spirals into dread, it might help to remember that the waking itself isn't the anomaly. 10,000 generations woke in the dark before you did. The anomaly is expecting silence from a mind that was built, quite literally, to listen. Maybe the goal was never a perfect, unbroken 8 hours. Maybe that's a modern invention, not a biological law, no older than a couple of centuries in a story that spans hundreds of thousands of years. Maybe waking in the night isn't the enemy of sleep. Maybe it's just an old rhythm, still running quietly underneath a life that forgot it was ever there. So tonight, when you wake up at 3 a.m. again, try something different. Don't reach for your phone. Don't start the countdown of lost hours. Just notice the dark. Let your mind do what it's done for longer than civilization has existed. Sit in the gap for a moment, the way your ancestors once did without a second thought, without a clock, without shame. It's 3 a.m. You're staring at the ceiling. And for the first time, maybe that's not a problem to solve. Maybe it's just proof that something very old and very human is still awake inside you.